Hey everyone, it's Gavin Vengeance, and welcome back to MyXP. Today I want to talk to you guys about Final Fantasy XIII, a game that I know not a whole lot of people really love, but a lot of people do actually like it, and I'm going to try to talk about each game in that series because there are three. You have Final Fantasy XIII, 13-2, and Lightning Returns. So I'll start with Final Fantasy XIII itself. I remember, seeing the announcements alongside things like Versus 13, which ended up becoming Final Fantasy XV, and seeing the main protagonist, Lightning, and thinking like, okay, this character looks really cool. But I want to see what this game has to offer. I remember seeing like the in-game combat that they showed in trailers and everything, and I was like, okay, this is really fast-paced. It looks a lot different. Like, it's going to be something crazy. But fast forward to when the game released, I ended up getting my hands on Final Fantasy XIII. I wasn't a whole lot optimistic about this game just because I know there was a lot of people that were kind of like, I don't really like the style of it. I think the character's trying to be a little too hard to be like Cloud. I know there was a lot of like speculation over Lightning and how that character was going to be. But yeah, I remember like just trying it at the game, and you get the opening scene where you're coming into Cocoon on the train, and I thought the graphics were super impressive, and I couldn't believe how like well it was. So like it looked so polished, and you could see like the pores and like the character's skin and stuff, and I remember just like saying to myself, wow, this is incredible looking. And then I ended up getting into the first battle, which you almost get into pretty much immediately, and seeing the whole like auto battle function, and I was like, okay, well, I'm probably never gonna use this auto battle. I want to pick my own commands. Lo and behold, did I know that I had no choice really in a lot of scenarios, because the combat was so like fast paced that if you were picking each individual command, you were always left behind, or your ATB bar charged up a little too fast. So you were kind of forced into using this auto battle function, which I wasn't a huge fan of. And again, like later on in the game, you understand why that's put in place, because the battle system is so vastly different from anything else that's in Final Fantasy. Because later on you get into the game, you end up unlocking like the paradigm shifts and stuff like that. And I thought it was really interesting how they did it, and then I was like, okay, I see like the throwback to like the sphere grid with the leveling. There's a lot of stuff that, it was like a mix and a match, I guess, of like different systems from other Final Fantasies. And I know that they made the combat look a lot more like real time or action based, I guess, but it wasn't really. It was still kind of turn based combat, but it was more like on rails, like hand holding, I guess, because of the auto battle functionality, at least for me. And I know, the biggest complaint with Final Fantasy XIII was it just felt like a very linear game at the beginning. I think it was like 20 or 30 hours or something of Cocoon, which is a very straightforward like environment, and I can understand that, but I'm used to playing a lot of like linear games as well, and I hate to be the guy that says that, but like Final Fantasy X was also very linear. Essentially the entire game was linear, but Final Fantasy XIII, it kind of followed the same ropes, and I know that they did that and made it so linear because they wanted to make sure that the player had a lot better grasp of the new battle system and how it operated, and each of the paradigms, and they kind of want to hold your hand to show you how they're supposed to operate in battle. And it was nice, but I think it was a little overbearing. If you say that, as you say, like, yeah, there's only 20 or 30 hours. But yeah, it was one of those things that I know like turned a lot of people off of the game, and just be like, nah, I don't want to bother with it. Final Fantasy XIII's garbage. Like, I don't like it. But for me personally, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna see this game through till the end, because Final Fantasy is something I was very passionate about. I still am, but it's just like one of those games that I was like, you know what? I'm willing to go through it, and I gotta admit, like, I did get bored at the beginning, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm constantly getting 5 stars in all of these battles. I had no idea about like you know, what the rating was going to actually affect, or, you know, I know a lot of it was explained, but at that point in time, like, you know, you're just going through so much, like, tutorial screens, and you're just like, okay, on to the next one, spam the X button, or A button if you're on Xbox, I guess. But it was just, it was really, really hard to get hooked into Final Fantasy XIII, and I know a lot of other people definitely stress that point. But after you got to a step, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, you end up like getting into the open field, and then the game kind of opens up from then on. The game itself is actually really good. The music is 100% on point. Characters, I like how each and every single one of them develops. It's really nice to see so many different personalities, even though, again, I know a lot of people are partial to certain characters as well. But for me personally, like, I didn't really let a whole lot of it bother me or get on my nerves or anything. And like I said, I wasn't overly bored, but there were a couple of moments that came to a lull for me with Final Fantasy XIII. Again, the main antagonists, very, very odd. But again, that's not something that I haven't seen, so... Anywho, Final Fantasy XIII, it was one of those experiences that I liked. I'm not going to say I loved, but I definitely liked it, and I, you know, did everything I could. I remember, like, trying to get the platinum for it, but at this point in time, myself and my fiance were still living with our parents in, you know, separate houses, so I'd always, like, copy my save file over to a USB drive and bring it up to her house, load it up on her PlayStation 3, and then play my file a little bit more there. And in doing so, there was some kind of glitch or something. I don't know if it was happening to anybody else. If it's happened to you guys, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I remember, like, I was copying my save file back and forth between two different consoles, and for whatever reason, I wasn't able to actually activate the trophy for obtaining, like, all the items or all the weapon upgrades or something like that. And that trophy just wouldn't activate for me, even though I actually went and unlocked every single upgrade for each individual weapon in the game. And I made sure that I had every single one of them, and every item. Yeah, it was something like that. But I remember, yeah, I ended up doing that, and the trophy wouldn't go off, so I didn't get my platinum for it, and I was super mad about that. So at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm done with Final Fantasy XIII. Final Fantasy XIII 2 got announced, and, you know, that was one of those games that I was like, okay, I have to pick it up because of how Final Fantasy XIII ended. And Final Fantasy XIII 2, I was super surprised to see that you were playing as Sarah, and, you know, you were accompanying Noel Kreis. So I was like, okay, I was kind of invested in that story. I wanted to see, like, how they were going to end up, you know, meeting up with Lightning and seeing what was going on in the story of that, and it was very interesting to me to play as Sarah, which was a character that we didn't really get to use in Final Fantasy XIII. So I like that spin on it. I remember, you know, playing that game and having a lot of, like, flashbacks to games like Chrono Trigger and everything with the time travel, and I really also like that aspect to it. But again, being completely thrown off by, like, this heavy metal rendition of the Chocobo music or whatever, whenever you get this red Chocobo and ride around on that. That was interesting to me. But yeah, again, like I said, just be completely thrown off because it was so, like, out of left field. Everything else in the game, like I said, you were revisiting a lot of different areas. There was a lot of different changes and different time periods and everything into it. I was definitely a lot more invested in like the whole leveling aspect of that, and I kind of like the whole having Monster as a party member as well, as your third party member. So that was a cool aspect, and I was really invested in, like, trying to collect, like, the most powerful monster to have in my party, and it was just one of those games that, you know, that one actually kind of did hook me in a little bit and made me a little more invested into it. And then I got through the ending, and it completely threw me for a loop again. I'm not going to spoil anything, of course, but totally did not see that ending coming. And I just remember, like, looking at my fiance, like, what? Like, really? Like, what? So just completely dumbfounded, and excuse me, but Yeah, it was just one of those games that, you know, I played so much of it, and I ended up doing like all the side quests and everything for it, and my fiance was just pretty much like done with the series at that point in time. She was just so annoyed by like always seeing me playing Final Fantasy XIII too, and she was just like, oh, so she ever talks to us, my sister, and she'd always go on rants about how annoying Sarah's character was, or how annoying like Lightning had gotten to that point, because, you know, a lot of the dialogue was my sister this, my sister that, everything was about my sister, and it's almost, you know, it's just one of those scenarios where you're just like, okay, done with this game, enough's enough. But then, like I said, you see the ending and you're just like, okay, well, what happens next? Where do we go from here? And then, of course, at that point in time, everybody was like, oh yeah, there's a Final Fantasy XIII 3 coming out, and I was just like, oh god, can they just be done with this and move on to the next game? So Final Fantasy XIII 2 was done. I was playing other games at the time, and I remember seeing the announcement for Lightning Returns. So I ended up picking up Lightning Returns and just being like, okay, this is it. If they end up announcing a Final Fantasy XIII 4, then I'm not gonna go out and get it, because at this point I was just like, you know what, that's enough Lightning, it's enough Final Fantasy XIII for me. And at that point it was just getting like super annoying to keep seeing the same characters. Not that I didn't like them initially, it's just they're so like beaten to death at that point for me. So I played Final Fantasy XIII Lightning Returns, and when I first played that game, I was like, okay, the systems in this remind me so much of like Majora's Mask and trying to get everything done in this time limit. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before or not, but if I did, then I'll reiterate it. I hate time constraints. I hate games with time constraints. I hate games that make you prioritize certain things over other things, and in this game's case, like quests or side quests, I guess, because I just always feel like I'm missing out on something, and I really hate how I can't get everything done in one playthrough unless I'm using some sort of guide or something, and I don't like to use guides. So Final Fantasy Lightning Returns for me was just one of those games where I was like, oh no, not this. Love the battle system. And I was again having flashbacks to Final Fantasy X-2 with the whole, oh, you know, this outfit gives me other abilities, and I can only use so much of my ATB bar by using this one job. So then you also have the whole like paradigm shift mechanic, where instead of paradigm shifting, you're shifting between your gear sets essentially. So it was this whole trying to optimize like what jobs or whatever you want to call it that you had, you know, equipped. I can't remember what it's called, like schematas or schemat. I don't know, something like that. But I remember like having to, you know, switch between them a lot and just getting used to that battle system, which was very different for me to pick up because it was such a unique battle system. But again, one of those things that it's really hard for me to get into something like that when I'm already essentially done emotionally with the series. So I remember really having a hard time like bringing myself to play Lightning Returns and to get through it, and just being like completely discouraged that I was going to miss out on something. But I eventually did end up getting through Final Fantasy XIII Lightning Returns. I remember getting to the end and just being like, okay, you know, Lightning was essentially this one-dimensional, like, no emotion type character that they transformed her into, which apparently is supposed to go along with a main point in the story, but I didn't really like it. And then, you know, you do the ending fight, and then you're just like, okay, I know essentially what they're doing. They're trying to like put Lightning on this pedestal and make her the be all end all like best character that they ever came out with, and I wasn't a fan of it, as you couldn't tell. But yeah, Lightning Returns, like, I liked the combat system after I got into it and I got a grasp of it. It was a lot better than the whole, like, auto battle paradigm shifting thing, even though it was still kind of like paradigm shifting or job changing, whatever you want to, call it for your own sake, I guess. But the actual, like, ending kind of made me really be reluctant towards Final Fantasy XIII, and it's not because of any other reason other than the fact that the area that they presented Lightning in the final scene. That's all I'll say. I won't say anything else spoiler regards, but yeah, anywho, I don't like where Lightning ended up. For me, it's super corny. I know that's weird saying that about Final Fantasy, but I really didn't like what they did with Final Fantasy XIII and the whole Lightning and the savior thing or whatever. But yeah, Final Fantasy XIII, I mean, it started off, I was willing to suffer through it and just say, you know what, like, this is going to be a great game, and I initially liked it. Final Fantasy XIII 2, I really liked, and it was something that, I didn't have a whole lot of problems with, except for the ending. Like I said, it kind of ended on a big, like, what moment, because I guess they're trying to sell you on the third part, and the third part for me really fell flat. I did go back, and I did end up, like, completing the game multiple times and doing the quests that I missed. And I don't know, I just can't find the love for it. It's one of those games that, for me, I'm kind of with the general consensus that it's the low point of Final Fantasy, for me at least, and I'm not sure, why it was, I don't know, so, like, drilled in our head that we had to accept Lightning and we had to accept this cast of characters, even though they tried to, like, drastically change their personalities and how they were from, like, game to game. At that point, I was just done with it, and I wasn't buying it, right? I was just like, you know what? Enough's enough. So, yeah, that's my experience with Final Fantasy XIII. It's not a overly positive one, I guess, but that's essentially all I can say about it. It's one of those games that I'm probably not going to pick up again. It's just one of those things. If you haven't played it, then by all means look into it at least look up the cutscenes or something and see what I'm talking about and why the game may have made me feel the way I had towards it. But yeah, it's Final Fantasy XIII. There's not really much else that I could say about it. The next one was going to be Final Fantasy XIV for me, but I feel like I have almost too much to say about Final Fantasy XIV to actually put it into a single video. So Final Fantasy XIV, I'm probably going to end up skipping in the next MyXP. And I think I might end up just, like, doing a series of other videos on that, just because I could literally talk for hours about Final Fantasy XIV and my entire experience with it. So I'm gonna end up, like, separating that over a course of videos and make it kind of like its own series of its own. So the next video that I'll be seeing you guys in will be for Final Fantasy XV, and that one is a roller coaster for me as well, so stay tuned for that. Anywho, guys, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like my video, or if you agree with me, or if you guys disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if you guys like my content, please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.